Okay, we're good.
Okay, welcome everybody to our regular meeting of the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District. I'd like to take a moment at the beginning to thank our interpreters for being here today. Also welcome all of our trustees that are around the table and staff that are here today. We appreciate the work that's gone in to lead up to this meeting. And we'd like to welcome anybody who's going to be joining us online today, an important part of the process. And I'd like to give a special welcome and shout out to Stephenville Primary School School Council, who are going to be doing a presentation for us a little bit later in our meeting. I'm Dr. Greg O'Leary, I'm your chair. We've got Dennis Mahoney is our vice chair here today. We'll save going around and doing all introductions again as we did them in a previous meeting, but I'll acknowledge our superintendent, Mr. Terry Holling. It might be our first public meeting since you've been in the role, so I thank you for your work. I really appreciate that. At this time, we'll start off with our first item, which will be an adoption of the agenda. So at this time, I'd like to request a motion to accept our agenda for today. Can I get someone to move that? Moved by Mr. White. Seconder? Ms. Jewer, appreciate that. Any discussion on the agenda for today? Okay, I note that there's discussion right now from Vice Chair Dennis Mahoney.
Chair, just two items. One is under the agenda item 7.3C. Request that the item be amended to just read land acquisition for Cartwright, and the reference to gymnasium purchase and be deleted from the agenda. And secondly, just as a general comment, I will recuse myself from any discussion under agenda item 7.3D, PWC land lease for Canada Games track and field, on the basis that I'm a board member of the Canada Games 2025.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Perfect. That's noted. While I've got everyone's attention, any other changes anybody would like to discuss? Is everybody all right with the changes? Okay, all right, carried. We'll move to our third item of business, which is a consideration of the minutes from our last board meeting on November. Yeah. Oh, yeah, my apologies. Okay, as we'll move to our vote on that. So all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to the third item on our agenda for today, which is our consideration of our minutes, our last board meeting minutes from November 28th, 2022. So I'll request a motion to accept the minutes. Thank you, Ms. Jewer. Seconder? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. As we have no new business arising, which is our fourth item agenda, I'll now turn it over to Mr. Hall for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my privilege to give a superintendent's report here today of all of the good things that's happening in education in our province. At first slide is just a quick snapshot of the district. As you know, we're across all of Newfoundland up through Labrador. We provide education to 64,000 students, 252 schools, and we have over 10,000 fabulous staff that keep the system running for our students every day. We have our strategic plan, of which we're in our final year of our current strategic plan. It's tied directly to our vision. All our student and school environments are the primary focus of our strategic plan and the work that we do every day, and we ensure the best learning experience for all through following our strategic plan and our initiatives that we look after. Under student engagement and success, which is one of our three strategic initiatives, we continue to support school administrators and teaching staff in school development. The school development model is results oriented. It involves data analysis, problem solving, planning, and continuous improvement for our students and staff. Our directors of schools work closely with their families of schools to facilitate school development, and they use three-tiered approach to support schools, being universal, targeted, and intensive. Second pillar under our student engagement and success is our responsive teaching and learning. Currently, all our K-6 schools are implementing the provincial responsive teaching and learning policy, which is now in its fifth year of implementation. In partnership with the Department of Education, the district collaborated closely on the rollout of the RTL policy with K-6 schools, including ongoing PL. And we're anxious and eager to look forward to considering the RTL rollout for grade 7 and above. Also with the responsive teaching and learning, we continue to have teachers engaged in deep learning certification processes. We continue to have leading learner projects throughout the year that engage students and and get their creative minds going. Of note, I just want to highlight two under this recent. We had the Clarenville High School. Some faculty and a couple of students were invited to present on the world stage at the Global Deep Learning Lab, and they had a world audience with all of the great stuff they're doing out there about student engagement, and very well received and got a lot of high praise, so very proud of that group. And recently, myself and actually the chair of the board, Dr. O'Leary, attended Waterford Valley, where this year they initiated a deep learning and mentoring initiative where they offered students the opportunity to work on a passion project that it looks at a real life problem and engages them in how to figure out how they can provide some solutions. And the great part of that was, in exchange for being enabled to do that, they also gave back to fellow students, so they were good mentors to other students that helped them. So another great initiative, and I got to say, very proud to have sat through that, and Dr. O'Leary attended as well. So it was good to see. We also still continue to concentrate on our digital literacy, which is very important for our students and preparing them for the future and helping them understand what is there for careers and the importance of this area. We work closely with TechNL, and we did a Sparking Innovation number of initiatives and that students and teachers attended, and also Brilliant Labs as well. We continue to partner and do a lot of great work with there. To the point we had 14 students travel to Moncton, New Brunswick in May to feature their innovative projects that they did in partnership with Brilliant Labs, amongst all other Atlantic Canadian students that were there. So another great initiative. Very proud. We also are engaged in supporting diversity. It is a big for us. We believe in inclusion, and we want to make sure everyone is welcome. Specifically Indigenous education. We do work with a number of our community partners to develop resources. We support activities in our schools that are directed towards this. We celebrate the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And I just want to note that this month actually is National Indigenous History Month. So schools are talking more about that and making sure that, we all are welcoming, and that, our Indigenous friends and students are fully appraised and celebrated. We also support multicultural in education. We focus on this because we continue to welcome a number of students from different countries. We partner with the government in terms of the New Canadian Initiative, where we bring people in. We help settle them in. We have a number of programs that we initiate for these students when they come into our schools. We have the LEARN program, which is a literacy enrichment and academic readiness for newcomers that we have now in our 6 schools. We have EAL, which is English as an additional language throughout our schools to help newcomers. And this year we had a pilot project where we supported larger groups of students that are coming in to get oriented into a school and a community. So again, very proud of that, and we can look forward to continuing this as our province welcome new Canadians to our province. Of course, this is also Pride Month, and again, under our pillar of diversity, a very welcoming and inclusive education system here in this province. We support our schools as they celebrate inclusive education. We think it's important, it's a foundation, and we want our school spaces to be safe for everyone, including those that celebrate Pride. And I'd be remiss if I didn't note that I was very pleased to attend a rally last week in support of inclusive education, and was delighted to see all of the partners that did come out in society, and our government as well, partners that came out to support this a great initiative. So, finally, under student engagement and success, we continue to support diversity. And we do this through, as I noted, our responsive teaching and learning to ensure all students feel safe in their learning, wherever they are in their learning journey. Comprehensive assessment. We teach about diversity. We have DHH programming, ASL, our PASS, and our assistive technology, just to name a few. How, in terms of ways how we celebrate diversity and make everyone welcome. Under our second pillar of equity, health and well-being, the district partners, again, with government departments, regional health authorities, and community agencies to support comprehensive school health initiatives across the province. Very important. We like our students to be active. We enforce healthy eating in our schools, because healthy individuals are healthy learners, and it enables them to be better, more attentive, and more engaged. We also continue, just to name a couple, to promote various community mental health services, which is very important, like Doorways and Bridge the Gap. Organizational effectiveness, we continue to look for ways to improve efficiencies in our operation, so we can make sure that our schools and our system runs efficiently and we have the best learning environments. One of note I'd like to mention is we've done a lot of work in promoting and launching, getting ready to launch a new electronic orientation and training platform for employees. Make them more welcome as they come in, and then when they're more welcome and they're vested, that's what helps our system and improves, continuously improves us as we go forward, as people are, even our staff are welcomed. One of the initiatives that's affecting all of Canada and even across border is recruitment and retention, both in our teaching resources and in our support positions. The district has been taking this serious, as with the rest of Canada. There is a competition for resources. It provides a challenge, but we have been taking a very focused view on this. We have a dedicated individual responsible for looking at recruitment over the last number of months. We've gotten out ahead of our normal timeline in trying to recruit and promote our more hard-to-fill areas. We're a vast province. We're a beautiful province, and we were trying to make people understand that every nook and cranny of this province has something to offer, and you just got to see it and you have to understand it. So very active in that front, and we are proud to say we are making some headway. We're ahead of where we would have been in previous years. So as a province, we have a lot to offer. We do continue to work with the board that I'm with here today, and department and government on the integration that was announced. I'm proud to say we're making a lot of headway, and we're looking at all of the positive outcomes and efficiencies we will get from this, and keeping employees informed. So we're moving down that path, and I think we're nearing a great point in that particular process in working with our partners. Before closing, I just want to highlight some of the great things that are going on here. I'd be remiss if I didn't, highlight our students and their achievements. The fact that students are back to being able to get together in groups after COVID and being able to go to competitions and, be challenged in their thinking. So that's a great thing. And we have, Labrador Straits Academy, who their Shark Tech team placed second in a competition and in Canada, and will be representing in a trip to Colorado with their projects that they've done. We had a number of winners in the Canada-wide science fair. We had a lot of students with brilliant projects that have gone and and came back with placements in the top three and winning awards at the national level in science fairs. Again, we have a number of students that won significant scholarships that's going to help them in their future endeavors. To the tune of $120,000 and $70,000, which is great. It's great to see our students be recognized, and it says a lot for education when we have students that are that vested and that are that successful. Finally, just to name another couple, and there are many. I could go all day in our system, but I did want to acknowledge the Royal Newfoundland Regiment Provincial Hockey Tournament that just finished with both divisions, very successful again, and our athletes. PWC and how they've rallied together, and the community has rallied together, and they've come out of their unfortunate incident much stronger. We have a Lego team from Valmont Academy in Kings Point, who took second place in an implementation category for the Canada Cup in innovation. So, this is, again, very proud, and we continue to build on this success. And as students want to challenge themselves, we give them the opportunity to challenge themselves and do these things. So, and before closing, Chair and Board, I'd just like to mention that we do have our Education Foundation scholarship program posted for all our graduates that are graduating this year. Please avail and visit our site, and by all means, please put in an application for one of our 42 scholarships that we do give out from our Education Foundation, valued at $1,200 each. With that, Chair and Board, that's the Superintendent's update for this period. Barring any questions, that's complete. Thank you.
First of all, before I make a couple of comments myself, anybody have any thoughts or anything they would like to say after hearing the report? I saw lots of thumbs up and excitement around the table. First of all, thank you for that report, Mr. Hall. Thank you to the team, whole team, all the specialists at working in educational settings all across of our province. And I want to take a moment at this time of year, given where we are. This is my 25th year in education. I was a teacher in 6 schools and principal in 2 and taught at 2 universities. But this is an exciting time of year. We're reaching the end of our school year. And as you just heard, a lot of work has been done. And I want to take a moment here now to thank all educators in the province, thank all teachers, all support staff in schools, all of our wonderful students, the people in this room, on the board, and everybody who makes an impact on education in our province. It's a big endeavor, and it's an exciting one. And I just want to take a moment to say that and to say thank you to everybody. Okay, moving along with our report. If there's no further comments, we're gonna move along now to our committee reports. And we're going to start off with our executive committee report from this past January. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our vice chair, Dennis Mahoney.
Thanks, Chair. So everybody, we had a executive committee meeting on January the 12th. It was a virtual meeting, and as you know, we created an executive committee, which is basically the same committee as the committee of the board, to conduct meetings of the executive in between our board meetings. The agenda, other than addressing our minutes from the prior meeting in November, just had one item of new business on it, and we dealt with the approval of our audited financial statements for our last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2022. So those statements were presented. We actually had a attendance by and a presentation from Katie Hoskins of Ernst Young of EY, where they came and walked through it and answered any questions of trustees. And the financial statements that were presented actually cover three categories. So it's the school control funds, it's the NLES, the Newfoundland Labrador Education Foundation, Inc., as well as the Newfoundland and Labrador International Student Education, Inc. So there's three categories by which those financial statements are covering. So I wanted to make that clear. And lastly, because of the detailed information on the timing of that presentation, we asked for time as trustees to be able to review the material in more detail and see if there was any questions from trustees before we actually held a vote to approve those financial statements. We did take a short pause over several days to give trustees the required time to look at the financial statements, and we conducted an email ballot by vote, which was done by January the 16th, and all trustees responded. And just to confirm for the record that the vote was in favor of approving the audited financial statements as presented. So that's the extent of the information that covers the committee report from our executive committee meeting in January, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, Trustee Mahoney. Appreciate the update. I'm going to request a motion at this time to accept the report. Can I get someone to move that? Thank you, Trustee Mahoney. Seconder. Thank you, Trustee Jewar. Appreciate it very much. Any discussion on the report? Does anyone have any questions or any thoughts? I know we had it in advance and had a good overview there from Dennis. We appreciate that very much. Okay. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask for a vote now. All in favor, accepting the report? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Okay, we're moving right along now to the seventh item on our agenda for today, which is new business. And at this time, we look forward to getting a presentation from the Stephenville Primary School Council. It'll just be a second. They're just readying themselves there. So just all hang in for just 1 second. Thank you. Okay, welcome. We can see you, but we can't hear you. we can see that the microphone is muted on the bottom of the screen. I don't know if it's on this end or that end, but this was all tested and working perfectly before the meeting. So if people could just bear with us for a second. Okay, at this time, what we're going to do is we'll move forward with the agenda, and we'll come back. We'll give Sheldon an opportunity to work with the team in Stephenville to get it lined up, and then we'll come back and look forward to hearing from the group in Stephenville. Can you hear me in Stephenville? No, it doesn't seem that they can hear me either. Okay. All right. Just one last chance before we move on. Stephenville, can you hear us? No. They say technology is our friend. It's great when it works. It's life-changing when it works, but sometimes it doesn't.
I think this is where the tech people advise you to reboot.
Okay. Apologize for the inconvenience. We just moved forward, but we're not sure if it's being live streamed right now, so we're just trying to get a little bit of intel back from our tech people here to see if we can move on until we get this straightened up. Okay, so are we all right to move forward then? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Just in the interest of time, we're going to move forward. So at this time, we're going to move forward to 7.2 under new business, which is the RCEC access agreements right away. And I'm going to turn it over at this time now to Mr. Jimson to brief the board.
Thank you, Chair. So to give a little bit of background in the history of our denominational education, the title to a lot of properties is still in the denominational organization. The case in point would be the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation of St. John's. There's recently been a settlement with the Episcopal Corporation and the province to establish title in the district's name instead. But in order to do that, there's a number of steps that have to be taken. So what we've tried to do is establish some guiding principles that will govern how this is done. So to start with, in May of 2000, there was an agreement with the Episcopal Corporation that has defined how we have operated schools for the last quarter century. So in that respect, we acknowledge that the churches operate, they acknowledge we operate, and we have worked very well with them over those years. So our starting point will be whatever we do going forward has to be at least as good as the May 2000 agreement. To move on from that, we, wherever possible, want to separate our school sites. So we will establish boundaries now, which wasn't previously done. So we'll try to be completely separate from the church's sites if we can and have the school be autonomous. Moving on from that again, if the church property will no longer be a church when it's sold, or even in the case in the future where a school property is no longer a school, we want to be very unambiguous as to what's going to happen and always protect the district. So for instance, if a former church becomes a fast food restaurant, we want to make sure that our school operations are protected. And going from that, we will have rights of way and access agreements, and a lot of this goes to the fact that we have shared parking lots, shared access to sites and whatnot. So we want to make sure that the rights of way and the access agreements always ensure that school operations can't be interfered with at any time. So again, our line in the sand, or to phrase it that way, would be that school operations can always continue. So the students can continue to receive their education. So to give some examples on cases that we've already negotiated with the Episcopal Corporation, Mary Queen of the World Church has been sold to a different denomination, and we have reached an agreement with that denomination and the Episcopal Corporation in terms of access to the site and egress from the site, which will be on each other's land, and shared use of the parking lot in between. Mary Queen of Peace and St. Edward's are a little different again in that the school sites were already autonomous, but we accessed the sites through a common access point. So again, we've just established the guidelines around that. And Holy Family would be a little different case again in that traditionally the church and the school use the same roads, but in this case the buyer of the Holy Family site will establish their own parking lot access. So we're agreeing to a short-term arrangement with them until such time as they build their own parking lot access. The last one to discuss right now is one that we're still in negotiations with the Episcopal Corporation on, would be St. Paul's, and we're just again establishing the guidelines so that the school's interests are protected in going forward. So the recommendation of staff to the board is that we approve the boundaries, the rights of way and access agreements for Mary Queen of the World, Mary Queen of Peace, St. Edward's and Holy Family, as has been negotiated with the RC Episcopal Corporation for St. John's. Furthermore, that St. Paul's Junior High be approved, subject to the approval of the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation for St. John's. And finally, that future schools, because there are roughly three dozen schools covered under this agreement, future schools will be covered by a settlement agreement with the Episcopal Corporation for St. John's, subject to the guiding principles above, and upon consultation with the board chair.
Okay, at this time I'm going to call for a motion. And I think just because that's a mouthful what Jim just said, I'll just repeat through, and I'll give an opportunity for people to have some discussion on the motion in a moment. But I'm going to call for a motion at this time that the board approve the boundaries, rights of way, and access agreements for Mary Queen of the World, Mary Queen of Peace, St. Edward's, and Holy Family schools as negotiated with the RC Episcopal Corporation for St. John's, St. Paul's Junior High, subject to approval of the district's conditions, and future schools covered by a settlement agreement within the RCEC St. John's, subject to the guiding principles above, upon consultation with the board chair. Can I get someone to move the motion? Thank you, Elizabeth. Can I get a seconder? Thank you, Blair. At this time, before we go on to vote, wonder, is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, first, Trustee Mahoney.
Just to confirm too, when the documents are done, is it the board chair that signs the documentation once everything's been arranged and finalized?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, if everybody's good and understanding, and I'll just remind people online that a lot of work goes into this, where a lot of people are putting these packages together, we're reading, we're analyzing them in advance. It's not something we're just hearing for the first time, and we are giving our due diligence to this, so we're not speeding through anything, so people understand that. All in favor of the motion? Thank you, Trustee Jewer. Seconded. Thank you to Trustee White. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, carried. Thank you, Mr. Sinnott, for the update and for all the work that you've put into that. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to 7.3, which is property transactions. And again, I'm going to stay with Mr. Sinnott, if he would brief the board and everyone online, please.
Okay, thank you again, Chair. So the first one here is Douglas.
YouTube. Yeah, shut it off. Yeah. Then you can unmute yourself.
So Douglas Academy in Lapoille closed in June of 2021. We subsequently had the property surveyed. We listed it for sale by tender, and we did not get any bids. We have received interest and a nominal purchase price from a community resident, and we don't anticipate that we would have any better offer trying to sell this property. So the recommendation of staff is that the board approve the sale of Douglas Academy in Lapoille for $3,100, subject to ministerial approval.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Sinnott. I think that one is straightforward. I'll put that one to a motion. Can I get someone to move? Thank you to Trustee Mahoney.
Hello.
Can I just ask the group from Stephenville to mute? And as soon as can I just ask? Oh, they can't hear us. Sheldon, if you can hear me, or Tech Guy, if you could ask them to mute until we just get to the end of the next item, and then I'll bring them right in, okay? Okay, I'm going to put the last to a motion. I'm actually going to read it again now, just so everyone's very, very clear. That the board approved the sale of Douglas Academy in Lapoille for $3,100, subject to ministerial approval. We've already got it moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this motion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Carried. I think, Jim, just you continue on to the end of 7.3, and then I'm going to bring in the presentation from Stephenville, okay?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the former St. Agnes School in Pooch Cove closed in 2002. It was a Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation property. In the process of demolishing the school, we discovered some oil contamination, and we subsequently purchased the site from the Episcopal Corporation, and we have held it for roughly the last 20 years. The town had earlier expressed interest in acquiring the property, but that never panned out for the town. However, subsequent to that, the adjacent St. Agnes Church was bought by a federally registered nonprofit corporation, and that corporation has offered us $10,000 from a donation from one of their board members to purchase the school site. With their purchase, they would accept the ongoing environmental liability for the site, which is the biggest advantage from the school district perspective. It's also good for the community, and that, again, it's a nonprofit organization that will operate in that community. So the recommendation of staff is that the board approve the sale of the former St. Agnes School in Pooch Cove to 132-68675 Canada Foundation for $10,000, subject to ministerial approval.
Thank you, Jim. I think that one, again, is straightforward, so I'm going to put that right to a motion. Can I get someone to move? Thank you to Trustee Jewer. Can I get a seconder? Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're carried. We're moving right along. And I think, Mr. Sinnott, you're on again.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Henry Gordon Academy, I should say, in Cartwright was recently approved for a replacement school. The documentations we have show that the Anglican Synod acquired this site from the Crown in the late 1920s, and it has been a school site since that time. We've been in touch with the Anglican Synod, and we have to acknowledge their cooperation in this, in that they have voluntarily said that they will turn the title of the property over to the school district at no cost, as long as we pay their legal fees. So the recommendation to the board is that the board approve the acquisition of title of the school site from the Anglican Synod, subject to ministerial approval.
Thank you, Mr. Sinnott. I think that one is straightforward, so again, I'll put that one to a motion. Can I get someone to move? Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Can I get a seconder? Thank you, Ms. Jewer. Any discussion on the motion before I move to vote? All in favor? All opposed? Extensions? Carried. Okay, last one, Mr. Sinnott. You're off the hook. No, actually two more.
Thank you, Chair. So this one is a little longer. The Prince of Wales Collegiate site has a soccer field and traditionally had a granular track. And adjacent to that was the 1977 Canada Games facility, which was subsequently decommissioned and turned into parking. So as most people know, in 2025, the City of St. John's will be host for the Canada Games again, the Summer Games. And we have been approached to lease some of the land next to Prince of Wales Collegiate, which will be combined with the land where the Canada Games track was in '77 to construct a new facility with federal funding. In order to facilitate that, we would lease the property to the city, and then the city and Memorial University and the school district will establish the operating parameters after which. So essentially, we are offering land in support of the Canada Games, but we are the beneficiary of a much improved facility for the students of Prince of Wales Collegiate. So it's truly a win-win opportunity. So the recommendation of staff to the board is that the board approve the lease of land adjacent to Prince of Wales Collegiate to the City of St. John's.
Okay, thank you for explaining that, well explained. So I think I'm going to put that lease right to a motion. Can I get someone to move? Thank you, Blair. Second it. Thank you, Michelle. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion on that motion? No? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Absolutely. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, no, just for the record that I abstained from the vote on that one, please.
Okay, noted in the record. Thank you very much. Okay, that one is carried. And last one, in this category of property transactions, over to you again, Mr. Sinnott.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this one is really housekeeping. In the recent past, a new school was constructed in Torbay, Juniper Ridge Intermediate. As part of that project, the province acquired, or the district acquired through the province, land on which a road was constructed, Darrell Pye Drive. And since the time that road was constructed, the town of Torbay has taken over the operations of it, which was the original plan. However, we've recently discovered that the formal transfer of that road to the town never occurred. So at this point, the recommendation of staff is that the board approve the transfer of Darrell Pye Drive to the town of Torbay per the original project intent. Thank you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I think I'll put that straight to a motion to win. That was a little bit shorter. Can I get someone to move? Thank you, Dennis. Someone to second. Thank you, Blair. Any discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinnott. We really appreciate all your time here today and all the work that you put in getting this ready for today. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move straight along to number 7.4, which is the school renaming of the hospital school. I'm going to turn it over this time to the Superintendent, Mr. Terry Hall.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have alternate sites for educating students, one of which has been historically a hospital school that over the years changed to Janeway School. However, in recent years as well, we've also joined some of our other facilities throughout the province to our hospital school portfolio, namely Tuckermore, which is a mental health youth treatment center, and Hope Valley, which is an addictions and rehabilitation youth center. So all three of those now make up one school. And the staff decided to undertake our established policy to establish a name that's more indicative and more welcoming and for students than just hospital school, especially since we've gone outside the bounds of it just being the Janeway Hospital. So they did follow the process. They engaged their staff because it's, students can be in and out, for a few months. The staff initiated 6 different names by submission. The staff discussed all 6 names in terms of relevance, and then took a vote and decided that they liked the name Compass Academy. It fits well. It's about navigating a new direction through respectful collaboration and connection, and this is what they want to do with the students that they come in and out of their school. So very pleased with the name, and I think it is a right direction and gives identity to the staff and to the students that will be coming in and out of this particular school. So having followed the process, I do recommend that the board consider accepting the name change from Hospital School to Compass Academy to give it some more identity.
Appreciate that very much, Mr. Hall, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to call for a motion on that now. Can I get someone to move it? Thank you, Trustee Jure. Can I get someone second? Thank you, Trustee White. Any discussion on that motion? It's exciting, and I agree with all of Mr. Hall's sentiments on that one. All in favor of the name change? Any opposition? Abstentions? Carried. Okay, no, that's excellent. We're going to stay with you now, Mr. Hall, for the NLISE report that happened back in January. And this one is not for motion, just for information purposes.
That's correct. Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to provide this update on the Newfoundland Labrador International Student Education Foundation, or corporation that operates. Each year, the district works with local international agents to provide opportunity for international students from around the world to come and avail and experience education in Newfoundland. Part of that is a tuition fee that the majority of which goes to our schools to help them operate the schools, help them with integrating these students into the schools as they accept them and give them the experience. There is a small part that's kept at the district level, so we can help all schools in the district with some initiatives, especially around our new Canadians as they come in, to be able to help with some resourcing or any needs that some of these particular families may need. So in January, the board of the NLISE, which is made up of 3 senior positions within the district, got together and agreed to provide $1,500 to Paradise Elementary to help with some immediate requirements for some school kits for some of the Ukrainian students that we brought in and to welcome. So it ensured that they had a backpack and some supplies, those types of things, so they could get caught up really quick in the school system with our students and feel welcomed. And the second one was a $10,000 amount as well, that we helped in partnership with ANC for some necessities for other arriving Ukrainian families, of which we, in partner with provincial government accepted and welcomed a lot of families. So it was some much needed resources that these families needed to feel welcome and comfortable going to school and being able to adjust. So that's the updated report for NLISE, and glad to be able to relay some of the good work that we were able to do through this corporation to be able to help some of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. It's really important. We appreciate that very much. Now that we're out of Agenda Item 7 and the sub-bullets under Agenda Item 7, I'd like to, if it's possible, because they are waiting patiently online, and I appreciate that very much, turn this over now to the Stephenville group to give their presentation. So if they can hear me, and if you want to come on now and do your presentation, and we apologize for any inconvenience or the time that you've waited, and take it away.
Hello, everyone. We can no longer see you since we have our presentation, but can you hear us?
We can hear you and we can see you perfectly. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you for having us today. My name is Wendy Brake. I'm a parent of 2 children, one who's currently enrolled at Stephenville Primary in the French immersion program, and another to start in a few years. With me is Samantha. She has 3 children who are not yet in the school system, but will soon be. Ryan Crocker, who is president of the school council, was unable to make it today, but we are addressing some of the topics that he had asked. So today we're going to speak to the local truths, our local culture and heritage of the Bay St. George region, and the heritage and identity of the children who attend this school. We're going to speak to Stephenville Primary School itself, the policies and philosophies that the school board has in place, and budgets and funds. They said they could. You can see my screen, right?
We can't see your screen, no. We can just see you guys.
Share screen.
I'm sorry, am I supposed to be using this one? We can, yeah. Share screen. Host disabled participants view. I think we just started. Oh no, there it goes.
Oh, last one.
Great. Can you see our presentation?
We sure can.
Great. Thank you. So right here we have a book that's written by a local author, Je suis Jacquitar, and I wanted to post this as a beginning slide because it speaks to my heritage in the community of Bay St. George as well. So I am a Jacquitar, which is a person of mixed French Mi'kmaq descent. Normally it would be a derogatory term, but for today it explains clearly who we are. I grew up with French all around me. The street that I grew up on was named after my family. I had great aunts and uncles, tons of cousins all around. And the language that my grandparents spoke to one another, to their siblings, on the phone or in person was always French. It was around me, but it was never spoken. as a way to protect us, because the school system at the time that my grandparents were attending school, it was not okay to be who you were. It was not okay to be a Jack guitar, to celebrate that culture that they were. So I spent most of my adult life, since I was 17 years old, trying to explore and learn about my Mi'kmaq identity and learn French as a second language, because it was certainly not my first. So I do have a degree with a French major. I struggled through that. I got it, and $40,000 in debt for a language that I could have had from birth. So when my we had an interview with my grandfather and asked him why he chose not to teach his children and us French, and it was due to the fact that they didn't want us to be physically and emotionally harmed, that like the way they were when they were going to school. And so that really rings true for the other books in the community that were written by local authors that speaks to this as well. So I took a few excerpts from these books so that you can be demonstrated not only by my presence and my sharing of our truths of this area and my family, but you can see that it's the case for most of the families in this area. So-and-so was French speaking. He clearly remembers being strapped for speaking his native language at school. Unable to speak English at first, he and numerous others suffered a great deal at the hands of the teachers. They were not allowed to be who they were. French was forbidden. But another person in this book recalls all their French books being removed from their school overnight without notice and replaced it with English books. The next morning, they were not allowed to speak any more French, only English. If they spoke French, they were punished. He noted that many bruises inflicted and the occasional finger broken when the dreaded stick was used to keep the tongue in line. And I wanted to use these excerpts because it shows that, French was not frowned upon in our community. It was beaten out of them, essentially. And that is why we don't have that language now. Another few excerpts from the book. French was not shared with us as children because mom and dad were afraid we would be punished at school for speaking it, just as they had been when they were children. Their mother tongue was taken away by outside force, not their own accord. Because of the circumstances beyond their control, their first language all but died out. And that is exactly what happened. Like the French, but even more so, the Mi'kmaq culture was suppressed by my parents too. English settlers harbored strong resentment against Indians. And few Indians were willing to declare their status. They feared reprisal in the form of ridicule, being threatened as outcasts, and being subject to abuse while working for non-Indians. So this was the reality, backed up by my family stories, many of the people in our community, and even by local authors, by Mercedes Benoit Penny, but others in our community as well. And to show that a little closer to home is that my mother was a Benoit and my father a Brake. And one family had 9 children, the other 8 children. There are 42 grandchildren. 6 of us know French. So you can really see the success of the school's purpose at the time to not allow French. You can really see the success of that because the language was assimilated with that generation. We've come a really long way. We now have, for the Indigenous side of things, for the Mi'kmaq side, we have Hallelujah First Nation and many, many other organizations, women's groups, associations, committees, for us to reclaim that language and even learn the Mi'kmaq language. It's the same for French. We have La Fédération des francophones de Terre-Neuve et du Labrador, as well as many other associations that are located near us or provincially to help us embrace the culture and the language that has been missing. Outside of our local community and province, we also have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. And I've taken a few points out of their report because it rings true rings true for us here in the Bay St. George area. So the lack of historical knowledge has serious consequences for First Nations in our case. In government circles, it makes for poor public policy decisions. We're going to jump into, in a few slides, the decisions that had been discussed to be made about our school losing the French immersion program the last couple of years. And, you know, what I'd like to highlight here is that decisions that don't consider our local history, our local truth, it does lead to poor public policy decisions. And our purpose today is to educate on that. And so that when decisions are being made about our school in particular, with regards to our culture and heritage, a second thought is put in there, and we're consulted to play a role to work together and make good decisions that will impact the children of our area. History plays an important role in reconciliation. To build for the future, Canadians must look to and learn from the past. And while the Commission has been a catalyst for deepening our national awareness, it takes all of us at all levels of government a lot of effort to continue to work towards truth and reconciliation. My grandparents did not attend residential school, but I thought that this comment that came from the spouse of someone who did attend residential school rings true for our school system in a way as well. Like I said, they didn't attend residential school. It's not comparable, but as you can see from a previous slide, that people did lose fingers and it had experienced a lot of bruises for speaking their language. So I want Canadians to understand that the schools did not just affect the lives of the person who actually attended the school, but the family members, such as the spouses and children, are also deeply affected about this sad legacy in history. So the fact that my grandparents and many of the people of our community have this history where there was so much harm and there was so much harm inflicted, it affects all of us. It affected my family growing up. It affects me and how I parent today. And I want the school board to know that.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Samantha Tiller, je suis mère et aussi enseignante. Je suis bilingue et pour nous, le français, c'est essentiel. So in our discussions and in our presentation, we use the word threat. We use the word threat amongst ourselves when we're discussing what's happening at our school, because that's the way that the community members are left feeling. They're feeling threatened and they feel like they have been threatened. And that's because the physiological response that happens for the community members here are equivalent to being threatened when we are being told that our programs and our support and the things that allow access to French language education for our children are being taken away. That creates a physiological response of stress in our communities and for our parents and within our families. So when we're receiving these notices that our programs are going to be rescinded, the attitudes and the health and the happiness of the families are truly affected. We go into fight or flight. We have less patience for our children. We're stressed. We can't sleep. We're not eating. We're not going to work. We're not fully mindful and present with our family and our communities because we're so worried and feeling so threatened by the possibility of losing these opportunities that we have within our school. So I wanted to just clarify that when we use the third word threat, it's because we are truly feeling a physiological response to these notices that we're receiving in the community about these programs being taken away. So during the 2021-2022 school year, the parents rallied together to strongly advocate for access to early French immersion program here at Stephenville Primary School, because they received notice that the program was only going to be offered to a very limited number of students, not to all the students who wanted to register or were registered at that time. So despite our enrollment patterns that show that there is always enough students to kind of create a class, we were told, no, we're only going to give you one, despite the ready availability of two well-loved and specialized teachers within the school who have many years of experience in the kindergarten French immersion classrooms here at Stephenville Primary School. So on the left side of your screen, you're going to see an email that was sent out, I believe it was in September of 2022. Sorry, yes, 2022. This one here that you guys got. Which kind of had said that The parents found out that they were not going to be offered 2 classes, although the number of registered students required 2 teachers in 2 classrooms. So that, first of all, we were starting kindergarten over the soft cap, and then as additional students registered, they were over the hard cap. Parents, once again, were bearing that weight of the physiological effects into response of this threat, advocated for the necessary units, teachers, and access to the early French immersion program. For the community, this notice was very shocking, and it took a lot of strength of the community to come together and advocate for what they required for early French immersion. So you're going to see on the other side is the letter that we received in January of this year, January of 2023. So this is the same school year, but just for the next cohort of kindergarten students coming in, that we only had 18 registered at that time in January. And so the threat existed of having early French immersion rescinded. So our kindergarten students entering this September 2023 were not going to be offered French immersion whatsoever at Stephenville Primary School because there was only 18 students registered in January of 2023. So because the school had received notification that there was only 18 students, the decision was made to send out this email to all parents saying the threat exists. We might have to take away this program unless we get the appropriate number of students registered as per policy that says that it's based on groupings of 27, which was kind of the first time that parents had even heard of this policy, considering French immersion has existed here for decades. After we received this letter, we all rallied together, and we are now, I think there's like 30-something students registered for early French immersion for September, and we have 2 units being available to us for September of 2023. So as we said, the culture and historical reality of this area, there are many, many families of French and Mi'kmaq descent, and practically the French language was just suffocated out of our area. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't given the opportunity to use it, to learn it. And then the types of trauma and abuse that the children experienced, they weren't willing to share it with their children because they didn't want their children to be treated that way when they entered school or when they entered communities. So the language was lost.
Right. What we wanted to point to here was the fact that French immersion has been consistent. Right. So one of the really important things when it comes to considering this program and the notices that we receive now 2 years in a row for our children is that the enrollment at Stephenville Primary School, overall the enrollment is dropping, as you can see by the gray line on the chart, but that the overall percentage of enrollment of French to English remains consistent, and even in the past few years has increased. So we're not seeing a decline in the percentage of the children and families and community members who want their children being involved in French language learning. And then here we can see that the letter that we received in January that said that there was only 18 students and that we were under threat of having our program removed, we feel that that letter was sent very prematurely. It didn't take into consideration the reaction of the community, how we would feel receiving that. When we look into the future, we can always see that after these deadlines, we have dozens of extra enrollment. So in 2022, 19 extra students enrolled, 10 extra students enrolled. So we would have definitely had enough students come this time of year, and the production of the letter was not necessary. I just want to pop in there though and say that there's the other side of it, where the previous year we got no notice and we only found out the day that school started. So I am grateful for the notice. It's just that when you're sending it out, please keep in mind, and when you're making decisions, please keep in mind that we have on average 16 new late registrations every year that are going to impact the numbers. So if we're near a cap, like if we're already near a cap, you can consider that we're going to gain extra students, not lose them. The publication of the letter and the sending of the letter is really harmful to the community. Oops.
So we were thinking that if French immersion programming was removed completely from Stephenville Primary School, even for 1 year, we ask ourselves, where else can we send our children? In other communities on the East Coast, on the Avalon Peninsula, there might be schools closer by who have similar programming or additional programming where they're saying, oh, French immersion's not offered there, I can just drive my child so that they can avail of this programming. But for us, the family schools, Stephenville's family of schools, Stephenville Primary School, Stephenville Elementary School, Middle School, and High School, they're the only family of schools within this region who do offer this programming. So if not Stephenville Primary, where? There are French schools, sur la péninsule de Port-au-Port. So we're looking at the Conseil francophone de Terre-Neuve-Labrador. They have 2 schools down there, but that's over an hour away from us here. Then we have schools in Corner Brook, and that's also another hour away, as you can see on the map. Stephenville is just there in the middle. We don't have that option to say, oh, okay, well, it's not going to be available in Stephenville, but we do have other options because we don't. Stephenville is the family of schools that provides this programming to this region. When we think about the publications of the letters, the sending of the letters, the possibility of losing our programming here, we're just left asking ourselves, like, why? How does this make any sense? Why in a school where it's the only school that offers the programming? Why even entertain the thought of cutting it? When you entertain cutting it and you send the letters, doesn't this create more turbulence within the district for the people answering the emails, for the people answering the phones? We're managing stakeholder concerns. Media gets involved. We had to do interviews with NTV, CBC, and everyone's involved in that. It takes time. We then have the removal of teachers. We have 2 very dedicated, fantastic kindergarten teachers here at Stephenville Primary School who have been in their positions for years. So saying, okay, we're going to take away the primary class, then what happens to these teachers who are such fantastic teachers and who have educated our children and the siblings of our children for years and years and years? You take them out, you put them somewhere else, you got to fill different positions. It just creates more turbulence that we don't really understand. You know, why are these decisions being made without taking into consideration all of these domino effect type things that are happening? We also wonder, you know, if you're rescinding the programming for this one class, then what happens in grade 6, 7, 8, 12, when there's just 1 year that is missing that kindergarten cohort? What happens to the course offerings then? We're concerned about grade levels, combined classes, teacher consistency, the school structure. There's teachers who have been in specific grades for year after year after year. The job listings, the interviews, the class sizes, kinder start readiness, and we have provided lots of data that was submitted by Ryan Crocker that shows that our school can readily provide French immersion and kinder start. So in addition to the unique circumstances of our area that deserve consideration on their own merit, there are provincial policies that exist that do support the implementation of a clause or a policy that would specifically support programming for schools who require it. So we're asking that French immersion be considered as a core program at Stephenville Primary School, and that we no longer receive letters that say that it's going to be rescinded based on class size or the 27, because we have a unique heritage and culture that requires the offering of this programming.
I thought you were going to do this. This is the inclusive and caring.
Right. So in addition to just that unique consideration, there's also policies that exist, provincial policies that do support our cause. So we have the inclusive education policy that calls for the inclusion of a variety of people and cultures and languages and ways of being, and that it can't be just done on a blanket statement. Every consideration has to be made to the unique scenarios that we see within communities and schools. In addition to the inclusive education policy, we also are seeing the safe and caring school policy that supports the creation of a clause or a policy as well for Stephenville Primary School.
I think that, you know, those comments about the policies, the inclusive and safe and caring schools, those comments were made in a way that our school cannot follow those policies that are currently in place if we're not looking at our local heritage and offering the French immersion program and programming and doing other cultural activities. I know the school often has different Indigenous groups come in and do different activities. Those activities are really supporting those policies, but removing our French immersion program is doing the exact opposite. So we can't apply those policies here at our school if we're not going to be able to offer the French immersion as a core program. The federal and provincial government have the official languages education program where over $5 million is given or is matched between the federal and provincial government to provide the residents of Newfoundland and Labrador with an opportunity to learn French as a second language, along with opportunities for cultural enrichment. I don't know that there's any other area in our province that deserves funds for second language instruction and opportunities for cultural enrichment. So the threat of losing our French immersion program at Stephenville Primary School, we do not want to face that again. There are funds, there are policies, there is a need for our community, and that's why we're requesting this. Those funds are put in place to implement Heritage Canada's action plan, and the performance measurement for that is to maintain or increase the number of schools offering French immersion. That money is given for us to keep our program. There's plenty of it. We can't be on the chopping block anymore. We can't go through this every year. It's too much. So the funds and priorities to support our school to offer French immersion as a core program. Our community needs the French immersion program as a core program to support the identity of the students it serves and the community that those students reside in. What we'd like to have as next steps of this presentation is to create a new policy to identify schools in the province that have a cultural connection to the French language and culture, like our schools here in Stephenville, and create a policy for these culturally connected schools to offer French immersion as a core program rather than an optional program, so we do not have to face this and go through this again. And most importantly, we'd like to stay informed on the process and be involved in the process. Please accept the nothing about us without us mantra. Please accept that and feel free to involve Samantha and I and Ryan Crocker, the school council. So merci, Roland. Thank you. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it very much. I can give you my assurance as chair that any discussions or anything that happens as a result of this presentation, you will be kept in the loop as we move forward. And I would ask that you submit your presentation because you presented a lot to us today in a short time, and it would be useful for us, for the trustees, to have a copy of the presentation. And at this time, I'd like to actually open it up to the trustees if there was a question or comment or any kind of clarifying point that needs to be made at this time, taking into consideration that we will take this away, we will get a copy of the presentation, we will have a further discussion, and we will get back in touch. Anybody have any thoughts while we have the group here with us today? And thank you for your patience while you were waiting to get on. Once I started item 7, I had to get to the end of it, but I got you in as quickly as I could afterwards. Any questions or comments from the group around? Vice Chair Mahoney?
Thanks. Thank you both for the presentation, and look forward to receiving a copy of it. Actually, I found the presentation educational for me as well, so I appreciate you taking the time, which obviously I think you put a lot of thought and effort into the presentation, so grateful for the work that you did on that. The only question I had, really to clarify something, is one of the slides you talked about is the number of late registrations. What's the background or reason why there's so many late registrations, seemingly consistent over the reporting period you gave? What's going on to cause so many late registrations?
I don't know that we would know the answer to that. I think the school might have a better idea. I know the year that my child attended, there were families moving in, like RCMP families moving in over the summer, people moving up from the Port au Port Peninsula. That's happening quite a bit. There's families who were, who had attended the French first language schools out in the Port au Port Peninsula are moving into Stephenville. It's actually really surprising how quickly that's happening. And then, for the particular year, I know that, some students came during kinderstart. So they did the first couple of kinderstarts in English and then switched to French.
We just missed that last point. Can you just repeat that last little part there? We missed that last part.
I know that in the case of my child's year, some students switched in during kinderstart as well. So they were registered and attended the first couple of kinderstart sessions in the English program, and then switched into French. But of course, they were already considered an English student. And actually, my child's year started with 24 students, and they gained during the first month of school, they gained 2 extra children from the English stream into their class. So they then had 26 children.
It's an excellent question, Dennis, because I can assure you that nobody wants to be cutting a French program. Everybody's super supportive of French immersion. I'm a former principal in 2 schools, and but it is a good question because you can understand and you can appreciate from planning purposes trying to put together units, allocations, teachers, things to that effect. But us having awareness of trends may be a factor that can be taken into consideration. We appreciate you pointing that out for us today, but it is a good question because there's nobody who wants to cut French program. It's vitally important in our schools, and we really appreciate everything that you've had to say today. I don't want to hog the mic. Is there anybody else who has a thought? Or I think we need to get a copy of the presentation, get our teeth into it, and have this as a separate agenda item, and get back in touch with you guys as part of the process. But I echoed Dennis's comments that I found this to be a very fruitful presentation, very educational for me as well.
There was a report written as well by Ryan Crocker, who's the president of the student council, the school council,
okay.
Which summarizes beautifully a lot of the data and the points made within the presentation. We drew from that. They did a lot of research with the administration of the school to compile that. So I'm not sure maybe if you have a copy of that already, but if you don't, we can send that along too.
Yeah, please send it in. We may or may not have. I personally haven't seen that, but please send it in. We'd like to have that as well. I just want to really thank you for your time. I know it's an emotional topic for you. Obviously, we picked that up. We felt it through the presentation. And I just appreciate you putting this out there today. I'll give you the last word. I'll turn it back to you guys for the last word.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for acknowledging that it's emotional, because it is. It's really friggin' hard. And I don't want to do this again. It's been 2 years. So as for emailing resources, happy to do it. But I'd be happy to send a package in the mail with some local books that really speak to the subject and can expand upon that as well.
Yeah, we'd be open to any of that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Contact information. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get all that stuff to you guys right after this today.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. We really appreciate your time as well.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for that. Well, changing gears, we're winding into the end of the meeting here now. So 8 and 9, it's just for informational purposes to let people know that there's quite a bit of correspondence that gets sent to the district. So noted in our agenda is that correspondence that we have. But I do wonder, does anybody have any questions, because trustees have had some time to look at this? Does anybody have any questions about correspondence sent in 8 or 9? Okay, just before I request a motion to adjourn, I thanked everybody involved with the school year, from the students to every educator in the province to everyone who supports education in the province. I just want to thank also the people that helped make this meeting possible today, and I want to thank Bernadette Colgendron, our solicitor here, who has done a lot of work behind the scenes to get this meeting ready, and unless she'll hate me for singling her out like this, but she has done a lot of work. And I would also like to thank Elaine Cross, who serves as my assistant for board purposes, who does a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes to make this happen, and I'm greatly appreciative of it, Elaine. And I thank everybody from the people who've set up this room, and a special medal of honor going out to Sheldon, who did technology today, who probably sweated pretty hard for a while there. At this time, I'm going to call for, unless there's anything else around the table. Okay, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge we're coming to another end of another school year. As you did, thank everyone in the school system, students, teachers, families. But I also want to thank the trustees that are here today for the time that you give to support education and coming to meetings, and the insight that you provide as well. It's invaluable, so I didn't want that to go unnoticed either. Thank you.
Well, I would echo that. A lot of time for trustees. They didn't know what they signed up for, but they do a great job, and it's been a nice marriage of groups here, and it's been powerful. We want to build on all of this moving forward in the years moving forward in the school system. So, okay, at this time I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Dennis. Seconded. Thank you, Michelle. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you, everybody who joined us online today. We really appreciate your participation in the process, and everyone have a wonderful day.